Today on American F1, I thought I would look and do a recap of Drive to Survive Season 7, which is out today, Friday. So what I'm going to be doing is do one episode at a time, and today is only going to be for the people on Spotify and Apple. I don't know if I'm going to do a video for it because there's just so much to do when you do the videos. It's just so much easier. But basically, the first episode is, I call it the Lando Norris episode. And that's basically what it's all about. It's all about Lando. It's all about Lando. So we're going to talk about Lando and recap the show because not everybody has Netflix. I know that. You know that. Sometimes you can go to somebody's house. If you're like a diehard fan, I'm sure you can go to somebody's house and watch it. But some people don't even like the show. You know, they think, oh, that's only for the new people. I always watch it for the cinematography because I think the cinematography in the show is awesome. So that's really why I watch it. Like the behind the scenes stuff is contrived. Is it true? Some of it is, some of it isn't. I know on past seasons they would show something and I knew for a fact it wasn't true because in some instances, well, hell, I was there, so I knew it didn't happen. But that doesn't matter. We're going to recap Episode 1, Season 7 of Drive to Survive here on...
Yeah, America F1. America F1. It's a golden run. America F1.
Meow. Yeah, so this is part of our new studio, and this is the desk part. So when I do episodes by myself, here's the desk. It's awesome. And we got my Doctor Doom bobblehead right here. Love Doctor Doom. Then I have my Godzilla. This is the Mech Godzilla. Small, very hard to find. You can't find that. And here's my Godzilla 1.0. And our vintage Formula One car from the 20s. And the champions of the people with the most championships here is Lewis Hamilton bobblehead, but he's with Mercedes because the Ferrari bobblehead hasn't come out yet. And as soon as it comes out, I'll have it. And then next to Lewis is our Max Verstappen bobblehead. There's our America F1 sign, as you can see. And then when Mike's over, or someone else is over to co-host, will be on the other side of the room. Now, let's give a little recap. Let's talk about the Lando Norris episode, Season 7, Episode 1. Let's give you a little backdrop. Lando Norris is 25 years old. Last year was the first year that he finally won his first race. They actually used to call him Lando No Win, which I thought was kind of mean. For a long time, he wasn't in a good enough car to win. So when you're not in a good enough car to win, then you don't get wins. You know, it wasn't even close. The closest he got was the rain where he went off and then Lewis Hamilton ended up winning. But let's read a little bit about Lando Norris. His car number is number 4. He races for McLaren Mercedes F1. He has 128 starts. 0 championships. Last year was his first win and he won 4 times last year, which helped McLaren win the Constructors' Championship for the first time in a long, I think it was 25 years, something crazy like that. Him and, of course, his teammate Oscar Piastri pulled it off. And he has 9 pole positions. He has 12 fastest laps. The first time Lando entered a Formula One contest was in 2019, the Australian Grand Prix. His first win was last year at the Miami Grand Prix. His last win, he won the season ender at Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, so that was his last win. He has 374 points last year, and he finished second in the Constructors or the Drivers' Championship. Now, let's get right to the episode. So basically, the episode is with Lando, losing again, and he's talking about how people called him, Lando No Win, and you could see it hurts him. And it's also about him saying, well, I have what it takes, but I'm just not tough like Max. Max is they showed Max, and him and Max have been karting since children. Max is a little bit ahead of him. He's like a lot taller, so he's a little bit uh, he basically dominated Lando all the way back since the karting days. I don't think he ever really beat um, Max that much. It's kind of almost like a Nico Rosberg, Lewis Hamilton thing where Nico never beat Lewis in anything all the way up until he finally won the world championship in 2016. And he wouldn't have won that if the car didn't break down on Lewis when he was leading the race. That I forgot where it was, but if Mike was here or Scott was here, they would know. I don't know off the top of my head. But anyhow, it showed that I'm not going to say that Max was in his head, but Max is in his head. Because he started talking about bullying and like almost kind of alluding that Max is kind of like a bully. And, Lando, they show a scene where George takes off Lando's hat and throws it into the crowd. And Lando was like, well, that's the only hat I have. And he's like, oh, well, I just kind of chucked it in for a souvenir. But I get it. He was kind of small as a kid, on the smaller side. And he's not that, most of the F1 drivers aren't that big. He's not, hulking, or he's not super muscular. Like, even though Max and Lewis aren't that tall, they're muscular. Like, they're defined. Like, if you see them in person, they're built. They're they got some muscle to them. Lando, not so much. He looks more like a fit runner. That's kind of what he looks like. He has a runner type body. He's really slim, not that much muscle tone. I'm sure if he took off a shirt, he'd have some muscle tone, because all the Formula One drivers, the workouts that they do, they have muscle tone, but him, not so much. And, he comes from a privileged background, so it's not like Ocon or Hamilton, he had to fight all his way, and at every step he had to fight, and people were picking on him, and he had to, stand up and learn how to fight. He comes from a privileged background, so he probably went to prep schools, and he might have got bullied by other rich kids, but bullying by other rich kids is not really like if you went to inner city school, like, comparison, it's apples and oranges. So, and they show him and Max playing pickleball, and Max is really aggressive, and Lando not as much. They show him, they think of him, Lando as like the party boy. They show scenes of him like being at clubs, and he DJs, and he likes music, and he likes to party, and he's talking about drinking the night before. But you also have scenes where Max, he's talking about drinking, but his attitude is, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna do what I do. I come to the track, I drive, I got my life, I go home to my life, I'm happy with my life. So I don't really have to please or appease the fans or anyone else, because I am who I am, and either you accept me for that or you don't. And so I think Lando, in this episode, it shows his vulnerability. It shows that, Formula One, it's a tough racket, man. There's only 20 cars, right? 10 drivers. That's it. I mean, everybody else is in Formula 2, Formula 3, IndyCar, NASCAR, some other racing series, WEC, World Endurance. But there's only this many Formula One drivers. And so, since it took him so long to get his first win, you could see the disbelief. It kind of was in the back of his mind at all times, like, can I do it? And after such a long time, being in Formula One, 6 seasons at that point, and never winning, of course it gets to your head, right? Can I do it? But the great thing is they show him finally getting his win in Miami. And of course, they show the safety car, and they show, Red Bull, of course, Christian Horner saying, oh, lucky, they got lucky with the safety car. I mean, Formula One, you got to be in the right place at the right time to have luck. And so Lando finally got it. And I remember that moment because, we were watching the race. And I was so happy for him because he's a nice kid. He's a nice guy. He plays video games. My son even played video games with him once. My son's like some big video game guy. And so they played online once. And when I saw Lando in Japan, I think I saw him in 2022. Yeah, 2022. And I told him, my son just kicks your butt in online. And he started laughing. I said, well, he hasn't beat you in racing yet, but, Fortnite, those type of games, he crushes you. And he just laughed, and he's a good kid, man. Lando's good. I like him. I mean, how can you not like Lando? I call him Lando Calrissian Norris because, Lando Calrissian for Star Wars. But anyway, also, so they show him winning his first race. And the great thing about it is he has this trophy and he goes back to the factory. And McLaren has one of the crazy sick factories with the big water. And it looks like kind of like a starship. It looks like a UFO. And it looks, working England. It's so sick. It's such a nice. I want to visit it one day. I mean, we were in England last year and I didn't go because it was too far away. But he brings the trophy back to the factory, and then they have all the workers outside, and they greet him, and he holds up the trophy, and they go inside, and he says a couple words, and it just shows some of the faces of the people at the factory, and you could see it meant so much for so many people. And Zach Brown, who in my mind is probably the coolest principal. Well, he's not a principal. He's the CEO of McLaren. But I've met him. He's hella cool. Zach Brown is like a guy you want to go have a beer with, talk sports, talk cars. He drives cars. He races cars. He's a racer at heart. And he works the room. If you've ever been around him where there's lots of sponsors, or if there's just a bunch of people who love F1, he works the room. He says hi to everybody, he smiles, he takes pictures, he shakes hands, and he might comment on something you're wearing, or he might, you tell him your name and he might, say something funny, but he's just a charismatic character. And I was happy not only for Lando, but I was happy for Zach Brown because, on this project, he has seen it through. He brought in Andre Stell. He brought in all the right people, and the car really turned around. And in the beginning of the season, as we all know, it was Max and Checo, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, and Max had won 6 of the first 8 races or something like that. And we thought it was going to be another year of Red Bull domination. But a funny thing happened is McLaren's development just caught up and surpassed. And I think that secretly there was something, we talked about this last year, there was something illegal on the Red Bull car. And I think secretly, just like in the year where they told Ferrari, hey, you got to remove this part, and they kept it hush hush behind closed doors because it would have probably been too controversial, because then people would say, oh, well, that's the only reason Max is winning, because they have all these illegal parts. And as we all know, that Ben Suleiman is a Red Bull lover, and so he wouldn't want to have that. So behind closed doors, seriously, and we talked about this last year, that they probably changed something on the car. And then the next thing you know, it was McLaren, and Ferrari was up there, and Mercedes, and everybody was up there, when the previous year was the greatest year ever for Max and Red Bull. No team had dominated ever in F1 history like they did in 2023. So they showed this, and then they show, Lando just finally getting that weight off of his, so to speak, chest, and how elated and happy he was. And then it goes on to show him now, hey, I'm in the title fight. And I think McLaren realized that Lando could have been in the title fight too late, because remember they gave, when he was ahead that one race, and then they let Oscar win, and they had made him switch. I don't think personally they should have done that, because even though you win the constructors title, Lando possibly could have won the drivers championship if McLaren would have recognized sooner that the car was turning around, and now we can go for the gusto, and let's maximize the points of the guy who's ahead, which was Lando at that time. But it was a strange thing. Remember, they came on the radio and said, "Oh, well, you're going to need Oscar." And when you think about it, and you remember 2024 season, he didn't really need Oscar. There was no point in the season where, there was going to be this change where, like, Oscar was ahead and Lando, Oscar moved over, so I don't know. When you have two top tier drivers, you kind of gotta appease, both of them. And it's different for Red Bull because everybody knows it's Max's team. You're the second driver. You're always moving over. You're always giving Max the win if it comes down to it. And a lot of these other teams don't have that. And that kind of relationship and dichotomy kind of will open the door for other teams to win the Constructors' Championship, which to the team is more important because that's where you get the sponsors, that's where you get more money. The fans and the drivers obviously like the individual championship, but on a team dynamic, I think, including if McLaren would have recognized earlier that let's put Lando out front, let's get him as many wins as possible, it could have been a different story in 2024. It could have been. Now, where else did the episode go? It showed in the fight that they had where they kind of bumped tires. I think it was Austria. Yeah, it was. It was Austria, and I remember that because we were overseas, and when you're overseas, and I didn't know this ahead of time, I'm so dumb, but when you're overseas and you're trying to watch your F1 TV from America, it doesn't work because they show the race like on TV over in Europe, but they make you pay for it, Sky TV and some other thing. And so if you don't have that, you got to watch like the replay like late at night. But now I know, so I got a VPN. So next time I'm somewhere and the race doesn't happen, I can just VPN to that, that continent. And then I can watch my damn F1 TV that I pay for. So that there's a nugget there. So for you people who, like, you go to the race, you're going overseas, you're going on a trip, and you want to watch F1 and you have F1 TV, just note, when you go over there, your F1 TV is not going to work unless you have a VPN. All right. And there's a shout out to the VPNs, and it doesn't matter which one you buy. I don't really care. Anyhow, because we're not sponsored by any VPNs. So it showed them bumping tires, and it showed how, to me, it showed how Max has this no-take prisoners attitude to driving. He's going to be on the line. If he crosses your racing line, either you move or you crash. That's his mentality. And it's proven. That's what he's been doing year after year after year. And the only one to ever stand up to him was Lewis. Lewis was like, I'm not moving. Like, I'm tired of this. Enough. And so you have to have within you, okay, we're going to crash, so be it. If you don't have that, you're never going to beat Max. Period. End of story. I don't care who you are. If your car is as fast or faster, but not significantly faster, and Max catches you on a corner when he dive bombs that corner, as he usually does, and if you don't hold your racing line and just say, hey, if you hit me, you'll never beat that guy. And that's the only way. You got to be willing to crash, and then he'll back out. and then he'll give you respect. Like he gives Lewis respect now because he knows Lewis ain't going to go with that. So Lando crashed out, and then they fast forwarded to Amsterdam, which this year will be the last year of the Amsterdam or Dutch Grand Prix, and it's just a sea of orange, Max fans everywhere. Lando put in one of the all-time, he could have won the race by easily 10 seconds and been happy. He won that race, as I recall, by I think 26 or 27 seconds. He kept putting in fastest lap after fastest lap, and they were actually telling him, like, hey, Lando, you can just kind of ease in, you know, let's just bring it home. And he just wanted to show that this is me, I'm him, I won my first race, and now I'm coming for more. And he did that. That was one of those signature drives that I think gave Lando a lot of confidence and helped McLaren win that constructor's title. Moving ahead, it showed, you know, Lando has a car collection. It shows one of these little cars that he has. Like, it's this really small car. I don't even know what it's called. It's so tiny, and it's actually like a hood convertible. It's like light blue. It's actually cool, but it's so small. It's so small. And it showed, you know, who Lando was, and it just celebrating his first win and getting the monkey off his back, and, you know, Zach Brown's and everybody's like so happy. So it's a Lando Norris episode. And so if you don't know Lando Norris, or if you're unfamiliar with his background, it'll give you a little insight into his vulnerability, his psyche, kind of shows a little bit who he is as a person. Now, is it super in depth? I mean, are they showing him DJ, and are they going to the club with him and showing him? No, they're not doing that. They just show a clip of it. And there's some other things that people alluded to about the episode, but on this show, we're not going to talk about that because I don't think that's important. I think the most important thing is that Lando Norris has finally got the monkey off his back. They showed that, and I think this is the year that if Lando's going to win a world title, this would be the year to do it before the regulations change, while McLaren still probably has an advantage over most of the field because they ended the year strong, so you would know coming into the 2025 season that their car is going to be a better version of last year's car. Of course, Ferrari's car is 90% different. Red Bull's made some changes. Mercedes made some changes, but I expect McLaren to come out in the first race in Australia, and they should be ahead. We'll see with the season how it unfolds, but this is the season, the 2025 season. If Lando Calrissian Norris, the Wookiee, is going to win a world title, I think this is the year for him. This is the year for him to do it. Because when the regulations change, and you got Adrian Newey at Aston Martin, and then you got all the development that's going on at Ferrari, especially with Lewis, and, you know, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. So this is the year for them. Do I recommend this episode comparatively to other seasons and other episodes? Yeah, if you're a Lando Norris fan, you got to watch it. Period. End of story. Go to your friend's house. Get Netflix for a month and then cancel it. Matter of fact, it's probably worth it just to get Netflix for a month, watch Drive to Survive, binge watch it, and then cancel it. And then watch it for the rest of the month. That's what I would do if I didn't have Netflix. But that's about it for this episode. We'll see you on episode 2. And thanks for joining us. And keep on listening.